Bienvenidos
Yep.
a todos los fans. Gracias por escuchar. So, hi, this is Adam Denlinger, and I am the singer of Area 51.
Hi, I'm Cooper. I'm the drummer for Area 51.
I'm Trent. I'm one of the guitarists for Area 51, and I look forward to meeting as many people as I possibly can at every show. I love metalheads. I love the family. I love the genre. I look forward to having a good time with a bunch of good people.
I'm Sakura, guitarist of Area 51, and I cannot wait to play as many possible places as possible and make an awesome show for you guys.
Hello, I'm Wena Velasco. I'm the bass player for Area 51, and I'm looking forward to meet you all at the shows.
Previously, I had come to Mexico and toured with Mayan, and at that time with Ice Cream Productions. And so recently, when I was kind of thinking about what we should do to launch this band in Mexico, because we are preparing to release a debut album. So we wanted to get going. So I talked with one of my friends from Ice Cream. His name's Seth. And I said, "Hey, what is your advice? What do you think we should do to get this started?" And so he said, "Let me think about that." And then we got this offer to do this show. So it was as quick and as simple as that. It was sooner than, than I expected, but I like that. I talked to him at the time and I told him when would be a good time for us to start doing shows because we are in the middle of recording the album right now. So that's why I thought, okay, as long as we get that process done, and then we'll be just kind of waiting on mixing, mastering, things like that. And during that time, we can start doing some shows right away. Why not? There's no date at this time for releasing it because since this is our debut album, we are interested in talking to record labels about doing that. So about releasing with a label. And if we start talking with labels about which, and creating some kind of deal for that, obviously they'll be the ones to set the schedule for when a release would come. If we don't work with a label for the release and we end up doing an independent release, then that time frame would be more in our control. But we won't know that until we have the album recorded and start kind of showing labels what we have. We'll be talking with a lot of different labels. We're open right now to talking with anyone that's going to really help us, get this, where we want it to go. This is kind of a career band. We're all very serious about it, and because of that, we want to do a lot of touring, great, shows all over the world, and make some great albums and music and have a lot of fun with fans.
Have at least 10, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking 10.
Yep. Yep. 10
Yeah.
songs. And the good news is it's all the music is all written. Now it's just up to us. We have some drums that we finished up. So now we're gonna be tracking guitars and all that
Mhm.
fun stuff and vocals. So but the good news is the music is written. So we're in a good spot. Things are moving along.
So there's about nine, what I would say, your typical full band metal tracks, and then we have one ballad. There will also be an intro track on the album, so I think it'll be cut into about 11 tracks total. This band, well, it's mainly kind of a melodic death metal in style. It's got symphonic elements throughout. And so we've got quite a few um, different artists that we're working with on this album, kind of like some special guests and people that I've either known or wanted to work with in the industry from some big bands. And so they're partaking in different aspects of it. And that's one of those aspects. Actually, we have a couple different orchestrators and arrange people that make arrangements that are participating in the writing for this album. We haven't announced who the actual artists are specifically from the bands that we're bringing in to do work on the album. We're kind of gonna save that as kind of something we release like slowly when it comes to promoting the album so that like fans get to know a little bit at a time, you know, a little more and a little more and a little more leading up to the album release. But there's some cool people that are on it and that are working with us, so I'm excited about it. There are some from Mayan, from my other band, and then we do have one from that's kind of related to the Flesh God Apocalypse. And then Septic Flesh, Persephone. Those are the main ones. There's also a very famous actress that's going to be featured, Hollywood actress that's going to be featured on our album. And that was kind of shocking. I honestly wasn't expecting to get that to happen, but we were able to make it work. And so, yeah, very, very famous person's going to be on it as well. That's just kind of a cool thing. So surprise there. Yeah, it's definitely like it's something that we wrote the songs for, and then once we did have one person help do give us some like you know, song content ideas as well for just a couple tracks. And then we kind of took, you know, the things that they were working on us with, and we kind of rewrote things and made the songs into our own, which was really fun. But that was only on, I think, 2 songs that we ended up doing that with, which was still really neat. And then one song, the ballad, I would say, since it's heavily orchestrated, and so because of that, I would say, gosh, like, you know, a vast portion of that song was written by that orchestrator, that person writing the arrangements. It was already written out structurally, you know, but then we kind of had them come in and make their own version of it. So in general, for this band, yeah, we'll always have a very like a heavy orchestrated sound. It's kind of like melodic death metal with symphonic, you know, elements all the time. So yeah, it makes for a very massive sound, which I've always really liked. And yeah, I think it fits well. Like listening to our single Victims, the one with the music video that's out right now that people probably are familiar with, or if they're not, they'll probably listen to it now. That song, I think, is a pretty good representation, like, of what we are all about on average. There's certain songs that are faster, more intense. There's certain harder like to play, harder to sing, like everything. There's also some that are maybe a little bit more slow and heavy. So there's just like that song is kind of like right in the middle as far as what we do. I think that's kind of a good average. For doing things live, yes, we do. Like we will have like some of the guys here. So Trent is going to be there doing some backing vocals. Cooper is also an excellent singer as well, so he'll be on the drums, and you'll see him doing some backing vocals. You know, we might see. You know, you might see, you know, Sakura jump up to a microphone every once in a while as well. You know, things like that. It's kind of so it will be. You will get some of that live. There will also be some choir moments, and during choir moments, the only way that we could do it was to have, you know, a backing track with choir vocals that, you know, we record to make that happen. There was just no way to feasibly bring a choir to Mexico City for this show. It's something we would love to do in the future. I would love for us to be able to bring a choir or hire a choir, in Mexico City or wherever we were doing a show like that at. So that would be fantastic. So hopefully in the future we see something like that occur, or even, an orchestra that plays with us, eventually as well. Like that, those are the dreams that we would love to reach. But for now, we have to make do with what we have. Sakura, you want to go first since we're playing a show with some big band that you like and
I like all music really, but I'm definitely partial to like anything neoclassical and symphonic and melodic and basically this band. Summed up, I love Rotting Christ personally. I love black metal, death metal, and I love their well, they have like a ritualistic kind of vibe, which I think is really cool.
Trent, go ahead, boss.
All right, I'm kind of the oddball, I think, out of the group because I love all types of metal, just regardless. I'll listen to anything, but I am very partial to power metal. So I really really like bands like Beast in Black, Glory Hammer. I always have to throw out Ailstorm because I love pirate metal. There's always a good metal shanty, which I think is always nice, but I grew up listening to mostly Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, that kind of stuff, the really real death metal style thing. So I just any metal, any metal for me is good. So I try not to gatekeep.
Buena, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me?
Go for it.
I don't know. I'm pretty diverse as well. I grew up listening to like progressive progressive rock metal, like Dream Theater. Um, though I do also like Amon Amarth. That's like my daily jam. Pantera, of course, Sepultura, um, and a lot of how do you call that type of music? Like trip hop, some chill vibes.
Go.
Being a bass player, I also like funk and music and anything really. I'm very diverse, not just like metal.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely King Diamond, Judas Priest, Motorhead. I have fallen into a little bit of dark ambient music as well to kind of calm the waters. I've heard great doom metal bands, My Dying Bride, anything that sort of has a classical approach and just makes you feel something. And yeah, the list goes on. But those are the hard hitters for me. They always come back.
For me, gosh, I also listen to a lot of different types of music, not just metal. I really enjoy classical music as well. One of my favorite, if I had to pick two favorite composers from the kind of classical and romantic era stuff, I would say that I really like Chopin, and I really like Schubert's work specifically for four hands. He wrote a lot of cool pieces for two pianos, and it was just incredible. So I've always kind of liked that kind of stuff. There's actually some piano moments in this album as well, like some piano and voice, and like in those sections, like I wrote those piano parts just from my and I'm not a pianist at all, but I can play well enough to at least to get out the things that we came and brought to this album, which was fun. Besides those things, I do enjoy opera when it's live, so I enjoy that kind of stuff. But in terms of my metal tastes, I would say that I've also been kind of all over the place. I'm also a power metal fan like Trent. Mainly though, I was a big like Stradivarius, kind of person. I loved all of that because I used to play guitar back in the day before I started singing. So really enjoyed power metal for that reason. Really like a lot of death metal. I listened to Mayan before I was in it, so like they were a big influence on me. Um, Bands like Camelot, Symphony X, those were great for the singers. Same thing with Iced Earth, the old Iced Earth stuff. I loved it because the vocalists were just, those were three examples
Yeah.
of vocalists that I really liked and I paid a lot of attention to. Also, bands like Primal Fear. That was another good one with Ralph Sheepers, of course, being amazing. So just some iconic things like that. I listen to a lot of bands for singers. When it comes to music, I like Dimmu Borgir a lot. When it comes to any kind of black metal, though, I definitely am in the melodic black metal fan crowd. So, or the atmospheric black metal. I really like atmospheric black metal. So if a band name that I would throw out for one of those would be like Core Scorpy. I think that that's probably my favorite melodic black metal band. Um, so yeah, I'm excited. I thought it was very cool to see that this band we're gonna play with does some kind of like black metal and jazz fusion-y kind of stuff. I heard some of their work and I think it sounds really cool. And of course, Rotting Christ is great. So I'm thrilled to be there also. I think this is just gonna be an iconic event. So I'm just happy to be there and happy to be a part of that. Um, I think that probably sums it up for my musical tastes. That
You
that one was a similar circumstance actually, where um, prior to us finalizing our lineup for the band, we wanted to just kind of get out there and try some of these songs out live to see what it was going to be like and how, what people thought of it. And so I was thinking about where I kind of wanted, to do that. And, we talked about it as a band, those of us that were here at that time before we finalized everyone. And at that time, we all thought that something in, Chile would be a great, opportunity. So we happened to see that Dark Tranquillity was performing there, and we thought, that's probably gonna be a fun show. Like I think that would be a good one. So I just reached out to some people that I was in touch with there and talked to them about the show, sent them the music video that we had made and said, we had just made it. No one had seen it yet. It was, it hadn't even been released and said, hey, this is kind of like what we're about, so they loved it and so they invited us to come perform. So that's how it worked. That was really cool. I think that all of us, could feel that energy. And then we had a great interview after that show as well. So um, yeah, all of us really at that point, we were pretty confident that okay, like these fans, really loved it. One of the things that I thought was shocking, that no one else in the band believed, actually, until later on. After the show was done, I told the rest of the band, hey, actually, some of them learned the lyrics and were singing along in the songs already. Like, no one has ever heard these songs before. So the fact that they were that focused and that into the music and paying that much attention was really, really special. And that made me feel like, wow, people here are really attached to what we're making. And so we wanted to, kind of continue on with that. And that's why we're, I think, still willing to go out and even do some shows like this one right now, because I think that the energy and everything that needs to be there for a live show, we've got. And people are going to love our show if they come and they check it out. Whereas, the other option was to wait until the album was released and then we start doing shows. But because we had that experience in Chile, it just didn't seem like we even needed to have the album out yet. We can get started right away. And so that's why we're willing to come out and do this show, even while we're just still in the middle of, recording the album.
Santiago was revitalizing. I did not expect that from them. I mean, these fans, they are on another level. To me, they rival the Europeans, and it's more of a way of life. It's very different. You don't see that much energy and passion in other places in the world. At least I haven't been to all the places quite yet, but something really, I mean, just kept the spark going. So, and that really helped us continue to push to make this album the best it can possibly be. Making sure the music's good, because it's for the fans like that, make it worthwhile, and it's what it's all about. The full circle. Yeah, we played songs that are all in the record, some of which that we had different versions because we were still sort of in the writing process with some of the songs. So, what we did there is like kind of the early versions of the songs, and we've done things like extended and changed a pre-chorus and just worked on making sure this is not only going to make a big splash, but you feel something when you hear it. So, yeah. Everything that we did there will be on the record, and it will be better.
We didn't really have a finalized lineup to begin with yet. So this is the final, this is the band lineup. What we had before was temporary. In fact, the guy in the mask was a long-time friend of mine, and but he was always just kind of he's going to be moving away to Europe. He's a friend of mine, but locally, and he was eventually going to be moving. So I said, well, hey, for now, we just need somebody to, be around in this phase of getting the band going, writing these songs, working things out together. And since he loved the music too, he was more than happy to be part of it. Same thing, we did have another guitarist, originally that was also working with me on songwriting, and a long time friend of mine as well, who I had worked with in other projects previously. So just a good guitarist. And but in the end, when it came to making a final lineup, we needed to finalize that before we started recording the album, and so that everybody that you see in the band right now, this is the band. When you hear the album, this is who it came from. So there's not really any I would venture to say it's not really a lineup change. It's just we finally figured out what our lineup is.
Yeah. And we're going for the goal is for accomplishing very extraordinary music. So with that, it takes very extraordinary effort, and it can be difficult, but we know what we want and we're going for it. We're very hungry for it. So, understandably, when things didn't work out with other members, everything that they've laid, before that was integral to the growth of the band. Kind of an all for one for all mentality. And, I wish them nothing but the best. And yeah, we're really shooting for the stars with what we're doing. So understandably, not everyone can do that.
Previously, when we made the costume, Sakura wasn't around yet. So we actually had the costumes made by a custom maker out in Kentucky, so a different state in the US. And so he kind of worked on those things, and then I just spent some time airbrushing and painting them. So just making little details and things like that for the color. But we will be using that those things live as well. Yes. So it's part of the band image, which kind of comes from this um like the band name Area 51. I don't know how much you're familiar with where that term kind of comes from, but it's this military installation and military base in the United States. And it's always just kind of had these fun rumors about like keeping alien spaceships there and all kinds of crazy stuff. And one time I just thought, oh, it'd be cool if we had some kind of costuming that kind of went along with that. So our costumes have a lot of elements that are kind of part animal, part alien looking, and so we're kind of, all of us are supposed to be sort of almost like experiments gone poorly out of Area 51, and we all kind of escaped. I don't know. It's not like, obviously that's not, that's, just, it was just kind of a fun idea, and we started making cool costumes from that idea. So yeah, Sakura, you want to tell him about what, because Sakura's making some costumes now for us, though. You want to tell him about what you do, Sakura?
Yeah, I do have a shop. I just actually before I got into music, I was actually going to be a designer, which I know that sounds really weird, but I used to make myself dresses, other people costumes, whatever, and then I got the music bug and I started shredding, and then I totally forgot that that was even a side of me, and then I just recently have kind of picked it back up, and I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of use those skills. I love the theme of the band and the whole reptilian experiment. I personally love sci-fi and all that sort of stuff. So this is definitely a cool project.
That was so that was my idea. I was actually driving through the desert one time, and I just thought, I was trying to think of names maybe that wouldn't be too hard for people to remember, and also that were kind of had some mystery to them, because the whole point of Area 51 is it's like this mysterious place, right? That no one really knows what happens there. Like, we can't just like go in and see. It's, a military base. So we can't go investigate it. No one can. So because of that, that kind of goes, it kind of ties in with our lyric content a little bit. Because our lyric content is about trying to make sense of things and trying to, um, what do I want to say? We can't get an easy grasp necessarily on what happens at Area 51, just like we can't get a full grasp on solving problems in the world that we don't control. So being part of a solution to a problem in the world is a big thing, but individually, we're all kind of limited. So the album is about not just about the struggles or the things that are wrong in the world that we can't solve, but also how we cope with them as people and how we make the best out of whatever situation we're dealing with and whatever we're coming up against in our lives, whether that is, political problems or cultural problems. It's kind of, this album covers a lot of territory in terms of, what those issues are that we see in the world. But the main focus is on do we how do we survive that? So how do we get through the days? And so that's what it's about. So yeah, hopefully this album allows people, if they read the lyrics, to read it and understand that yes, life is really terrible at times. So how do we cope with that? How do we work towards keeping a positive mindset, even in a world where there's so much struggle? So that's mainly what the album is about. This band was started in a sense, the concept and the ideas were formed during the pandemic.
Goal, you tend to find community. You realize you're not the only one. And yeah, I mean, think of all the great music that was released after that such a terrible thing had happened. It just shows you that there's a connection to the inner world and in all of us, and that goes beyond the language and countries and borders and all that good stuff. So it's inspiring, man. That we came out the other side too. A lot of us who were lucky. So
I mean, like Cooper was kind of mentioning, it is about community, and music is this whole industry wouldn't exist if it weren't for fans. So, I mean, I don't care how many artists you have, if there's no one to hear it, nothing happens. So, I would say that, obviously we're doing our part here to write music, to play it, to perform it. But at the same time, none of that matters at all without fans. So, if we were just performing in a space by ourselves with no fans, I don't know if I would want to do it, to be honest. I mean, I'm an artist, so yes, I like to create, I like to do things, but we work really hard. Just to put it bluntly, this has been a lot of work. So to put in this much effort, if it was just for us, I don't know. I don't think it'd be worth it. Yeah, maybe not.
yeah,
But because I know that fans get something from it too, it's almost kind of like fans are part of the band. So without fans, there is no band. Without fans, there is no metal. Metal doesn't almost even exist in a sense. So. So I'm really grateful to people that come to our shows, that listen to our music, that interact with our social media, that drop a comment somewhere. Like that all matters a lot. So yeah, and it's really, truly appreciated. So I hope that we are able to I hope that the fans that show up really enjoy what we have, because it's just going to be a special show.
yeah, man. That's like the unspoken language, especially with artists. We think about things like creating movies or coming up with characters. And most of the times those things reflect, or sort of symbolize things in our life. So there's meaning there. And, the least we can do as musicians is not just write good music, but really, really sort of lace that with meaning, stuff that we've experienced and just the emotions that we've come out of alive.
Of being a metal musician, um, I mean, none really. It's pretty much all fun, except when you know, it's not, which is rare. But it's a lot of work, but if you love what you do, then it's not really work, right? So I wouldn't say there's too many challenges. I've been really lucky, I will say. I know like a lot of women specifically, and I always get that question every time I'm interviewed. It's always like the woman question. But me personally, I've been treated nothing but great by people in the industry and professions and all this sort of stuff. So that's the only thing I would say. That's not a challenge I have.
Go, Trent.
Yeah, so the biggest challenge is I love metal because I think metal is challenging right off the bat. I think it's kind of what we have touched on, what Cooper and Adam, said really nicely earlier, is that we're really, really trying to create some really, really special music. And sometimes by doing that, you really have to challenge the boundaries of how you play, maybe how you think, maybe about meter, maybe about timing or about something. I love going and seeing bands play, like maybe a country band or blues, and nothing against them, but you see the people and they're kind of up there and they're just doing their regular thing. And I feel like sometimes in metal, you really actually have to work and you have to be very good at what you're doing, and you have to be able to play with the drummer who is, loading double bass through an entire song and make sure that you're on timing and on your beat, that you hit everything, perfectly. And while it seems, simple, I think on the outside, I think when you have five musicians and you're in a venue and half the time you may have maybe some rough sound in your monitors or whatever else, you've got to know that stuff, that music inside and out in order to play it correctly. Um, but kind of to what Sakura said, just because I love playing metal, I don't really find it challenging. But I guess I would say that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that I always like to try to push myself to do better and better no matter what it is.
Um, to me, I guess the biggest challenge in metal music is it's not really in the music itself. It's more like finding, metalheads that share the same goal as you, finding bandmates. Really, I took, a little hiatus here because of that. Um, it's just there's a lot of, there are a lot of great musicians out here and all over the world, but you know, they don't really share the same goal as I do, or as that I wanted to do. So that's like the biggest challenge for me, I guess. And like they're not very open and um uh, what do you call it? Like adding like a little spice to it, like being open in other genre, listening to other genres other than metal, but you can't be really different and you create something unique if you don't listen to other type of music, because it's basically you're just kind of getting some inspiration and writing something from it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess that's just the biggest challenge for me.
Let's see, drums. Well, double bass has always been a struggle. I mean, because we go through so much as drummers, from the spring tension to the technique, and what now they've got scientists where they put things on the legs and they're monitoring which muscles are working and which ones are more effective and all this kind of stuff. So I think the future of extreme drumming is in a good spot now. People doing heel toe techniques and things like this. But yeah, I mean, staying in shape with double bass, you kind of have to play every day. And that can be a challenge if you skip a day. It shows up. So in order to get this stuff clean, especially with the drum beats for Area 51, they're very demanding. So you have to stay in shape. Another struggle being, we like to have a little drink. Sometimes we'll have a little smoke, but as I get older, I definitely refrain before I go on stage, because it just makes my job easier, and it's more of a celebratory thing afterwards. And I've cut down tremendously on smoking over the last two, I'd say about year and a half, and I've already noticed a significant difference in my stamina behind the kit. So it's not always music. Sometimes it's just basic health things that you notice when you can refrain. There's just a lot more you have to offer, as an artist on stage.
I will have to agree with Cooper on that one. Like, definitely when it comes to and it kind of goes back also to what Trent said though about doing something really challenging. And doing things that are challenging require you to be at your peak performance. And in order to be able to do that, especially for singing, for drumming, as obviously as well, it's a hugely physical activity. But any of like these things that we're doing, all of us are working very hard, and you have to be in shape in order to do it. This is definitely not a band where we can just, wake up and, not have practice, not have exercised. If you do that kind of regiment, it
Yeah.
shows. You can tell.
Yeah, we
So
can't Pantera our way through this one. We can't Motorhead our way through this one.
No, there's a lot of challenges. So, biggest struggle for me as a musician is exactly the same thing that I love about singing, and it's particularly, I would say, metal musician. So, um, being a metal singer or or writer or whatever, but mainly just focus on the singer part of things. I think the most challenging part of it is the has to do with the excessive amount of freedom in metal. And but it's why I love metal. So, I sang other things. I trained in opera for, when I first started out. So I was classically trained years ago. And while that has very subtle nuances and you're kind of put into a small space. You need to sound pretty much like this. You need to use your voice pretty much like this to be accepted by the opera community. In metal, we don't really have that. If you sound cool, to somebody, everything's good. No problems. So that's why, we have so much diversity in the vocals in metal. We have symphonic metal bands that sing purely, classical style or, even like hybrid classical style vocals. We have death metal like grunts, growls, brutal death metal. We have the pig squeals. Who thought that like you could squeal like a pig and people would be like, yeah, that's it. That's what I needed right there was a pig. Now I know, like no one ever would have thought of that, right? Or anticipated that. But people are like, that's cool. And now in the deathcore scene, it's like, if you don't sound like a zombie, you don't even know how to sing, So there's like the zombie thing is gonna go in there. Pterodactyl screams, right? Like you're trying to
Yeah,
sound like a pterodactyl or what we think a pterodactyl might sound like.
right.
That's so out there. So all these sounds, in addition to the very like super high notes that sound, amazing, like that were mainly inspired from like the hair metal bands of old, but people still love that. So being able to do that stuff too, really important. Having a nice, big, thick, dense, like, voice is also really popular. So singers in metal bands can almost do anything they want as long as they sell it well. And that's what I love about being a musician. But it is definitely the most challenging part as well about being a singer in this genre because you can do anything, yes, but a lot of people have covered a lot of ground already. They've already done this one thing really well, or this one thing very well, or this one thing very well. When I was talking with, so back in when I was a guitarist and I was training guitar, I was talking with Chris Broderick. And if you don't know who Chris Broderick is, he was the guitarist in Jag Panzer, then the guitarist in Megadeth, then now the guitarist in Flames. And I was talking with him because he was my guitar teacher back in the day. And he told me in a conversation, because at the time I was singing and I was training guitar. And I just didn't have enough time for guitar. Guitar took me like I would practice way too much, 8 hours a day, and it was just too long. I didn't have time for that. I wanted to focus on vocals. And so I asked him, like, what do you think, like I should pay attention to, like going forward in the genre as a metal singer? And he told me, he said, I think that the way of the future for metal singers is basically you have to be able to do everything. You have to be able to sing operatically. You have to be able to sing very clean. You have to sing very high. You have to sing as terrifying. You have to be able to scare people. You have to be able to do all those things, and you need to be able to connect them all. And so I took that to heart. and I thought, okay, I think he's right. So that's kind of what I've done. And so I've never recorded anything previously like what I'm recording for this Area 51 album. This has the entire range of all of that stuff, but all from one singer. And I have done my very best to tie all of these together, to transition all of them together so you really hear all of the different colors of the voice um, throughout this album. And I think it sounds super cool. But going back to your question, it's very challenging. So that's it. That is my answer about being a metal musician. I think this is the biggest challenge for me. Yeah, you'll hear some crazy stuff in this album. It's clean, it's distorted at times, it's all over. So it depends on the moment. And when I talk to people about singing or when I teach people about singing, I always tell them like I like to think about the voice, and my philosophy is that the voice is kind of like a painter's palette. And when I'm writing music and I want to sing something, you need to make the right color for that painting. So you can't just, in my opinion, just sing the same way that you've always sang. You've got to do what fits the music right. So whatever I felt like the music needed at that moment is what I put in this album or in that moment for the songs.
Um, I actually hooked up with Kelly McLaughlin, great guitar player. He's played for I Am Morbid, Diabolic, a bunch of other great killer death metal bands, and ran into him at a Vader show in San Diego, and yeah, we're just hanging out on the patio, and I had just recently left a pagan metal band I was with for about 10 years called Hellsot, and which was awesome. That was a wild ride, and I was ready to go on to doing other things, other styles of music. So yeah, ran into Kelly, and uh, he had just been in a spot where he needed a drummer because originally Tim Young, who was drumming for uh, Pessimist at the time, was starting to get busy with I Am Morbid. So I kind of stepped in, and that's quite some shoes to fill. But I've been playing drums my whole life, so I was kind of born for that challenge. And the great thing is it keeps me in shape. Primarily not just as a extreme metal drummer, but especially for Area 51. The kind of rhythms are very demanding, so it's very helpful to keep me in shape for that.
As far as Mayan goes, how I got into that gig actually was years ago. I met Mark Jansen, who one of the founders, founder of Epica and also the founder of Mayan. I met him. He was performing in Los Angeles with Epica, and I met him at that show, and I had a chance to talk with him, and I was just starting to break into the singing, thing, and I said, so, and this was like 2010, and at that time I said, I want, like, do you have a piece of advice for, a new singer? And he gave me a piece of advice, and I said, okay, I will take that. Then years later, fast forward like 2016, I've been working, I've been singing, I've been practicing a lot, I've been working hard, right? Working hard. And then uh, I felt like it was the time, and I had talked with another professional singer at the time, who basically said, hey, you're ready to go. Like two singers, actually, two professional singers at the time who said, you're ready to go and break into the pro scene. Like, go ahead and try and get into something. So I looked around, and I didn't really know anybody, very many people though, in that metal community. So I actually reached out to him and I said, hey, like I'm trying to, get into a band. I really love your band, Mayan. I know you already have a singer, so I'm not like, but so if you hear of another band that maybe needs a singer, maybe you pass on my video to them. I had a little video compilation of things that I sang, and so he could kind of hear me. And he said, essentially, in a small amount of words, he said, "Hey, you're really good. We need a singer to replace Henning Boss for some festivals in Europe that he doesn't have available. So would you be interested in doing those?" And that was it. And so it was a big stepping in for Henning Boss Henning Boss was a singer that I also really liked. So it was very cool, and I loved Mayan's music. So it was a great opportunity to do that. And it really helped me, like, in a lot of ways, kind of make connections for this band. Like, for example, like the album that we recorded last with Mayan, the Jana album is what it's called. We recorded with Joost Vandenbroek in the Netherlands. He was our mixing mastering engineer and did some producing. And I really liked working with him. So for Area 51, I reached out to him. I showed him the music and said, "What do you think? Do you want to like produce, be the producer on this album? Maybe do some mixing and mastering for us?" And he said, "Yes." So, I'm really happy to have him, working on our album with us. He's such a great guy, and he's got such a great vision for music. And I mean, he was knighted for metal. Or, I mean, sorry, not for metal, for music. He was knighted for music in the Netherlands. I don't know like what other credentials you need, but I think that's very cool. So it's one of the things we need to talk about in a meeting at some point.
Yeah,
But
I'm glad you brought it up because
you know,
eventually we'll need to land on something.
yeah,
Still also
honestly.
rewriting some lyrics and, kind of just taking the process slow so that, every decision we make just feels right.
Yeah, and that's so true. Like a lot of lyrics have been kind of rewritten, and it's very common that you write lyrics like towards the end. Once the all the melodies and everything is written, you start writing lyrics and like finalizing lyrics, and then you start to see, once you get that far into it, you see what the album is about. You really get a feel for it once you're there, once everything is written. Now all the lyrics are written, but the rest of the band hasn't had a chance to read those yet. I haven't like distributed it to everybody. So I think that's going to be like a special thing that we do where like we all kind of like look at these lyrics and then maybe come up with some song titles, and an album name that goes along with it. So I think that's going to be a group effort. Um, I have done some um, I've in my experience so far, I have found that when I started out, when I was younger and I was writing songs and writing vocals, I would start with the lyrics because I felt like somehow that was influencing the music that I was writing and that the music was capturing what I was trying to say. And I think that you can go that route. Um, I have since found more success going the other direction, though. Having the music written, so I'm like, yeah, this music is awesome. And then when it comes to writing vocals, I literally just make up sentences when I am in front of that microphone and I'm just blah, blah, blahing and I'm saying random words just because they give the right emotion that I want at that moment so that the music of the voice comes through correctly. But then I need to afterwards, yes, go back and like, okay, which sounds of the voice do I really want to keep so that that quality is still there. And so it's not just about lyrics, it's about how they sound. And it's about the note that you're hitting. If it's a clean vocal, for example, um, depending on how high you're singing, that changes how you have to pronounce things. So if you pronounce, something in a strange way, it might actually change what the word might mean. So that can happen. And so you do have to kind of plan ahead, but if you're going to write it that way. I think with other genres outside of metal, I would think that it would be maybe a little bit easier to do it. If I was writing a country song, for example, most of their vocal range stays kind of in the middle. And so they can pronounce almost anything they want, and it's going to be just fine. But as soon as you start going on the fringes of your vocal range, you have to start modifying the sound of what you're doing in order to get the notes to come out and for them to sound appealing and predictable almost. If you want the voice to sound reasonably smooth as you're singing, you kind of have to modify some things a little bit. So that's why I think writing lyrics afterwards is working so much better for me. Because I can just focus on how does the music sound? Does it sound amazing? If yes, then okay, let's move on and deal with the lyrics later.
Well, I really think that there's two, they have to be, in my mind, equally important because on one side, we're only alive for so long in our lives to have time to make time in that life to express and say something, say something with your lyrics. So that's really important. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. So, we try to make them count, as do a lot of other great artists. But at the end of the day, I also love hearing gore grind every once in a while, or some slam music where there's like, you don't really know what they're saying, but they're capturing this energy, sort of without words being like at the front of the helm. So, at the same time, even though you have great songs with great lyrics, they're also great songs. So they're sort of bonded together in some way, it seems like.
Trent, let's hear what you have to say on that one. This is one I think that is probably a good one for everybody. Probably has their own thoughts on this one, so I actually want to know what my bandmates have to say about this.
I kind of agree with what you said earlier, Adam. Like, I'm kind of like 50-50. It's like even if you're singing gibberish, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it carries along with the music really well, and it makes the song really bitchin', almost like what Cooper was saying, like with this crazy death metal. Like, I always think of Corpse Grinder, and you don't often even know what he's saying, but it goes so well with the freaking music that it's just fabulous. So I can go on that side, but if a song happens to be awesome, has a great melody, and it has like great lyrics that really mean something to push through something, that to me is just like, that's extra. Like, that's just extra badass.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it doesn't always have to, but it's special if it does, if it combines all those ingredients, and then it's really good. That's why Ailstorm is so good singing about pirates.
Sakura, go for it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Adam and Trent. Like, music is music, and that's what makes it music, is like it's not so much what you're saying, it's like how the words make you feel, almost like the words are music by the frequency they give off, kind of. It's a little existential, but something like that. But then there's also like songs that their purpose is to be about the words, and then the music is secondary, like folk music or something like that. The point of it is to tell a story, not with the music, but with the words. So I could see how that could also be very interesting and important. I think that it just depends on what the purpose of the music is, because it might just be for the words. I guess that is a style.
When
Yeah.
I go for it.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with Sakura and Cooper and Trent. So I mean, it all really depends. I think they're both equally as important. I guess it just depends on what you know, the overall focus in the music. If it's like, if the focus is like lyrics, and if it goes well with the actual music itself, then it's like a big bonus, I guess. Um, so yeah, I mean, they can be singing gibberish, but if it sounds good and it goes along well with the instruments and the overall composition, then hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So I think that I really like actually what Cooper just said about we have a limited amount of time in our lives to say something meaningful. And so if we have an opportunity to put something down, maybe we should put down something good. Like, I don't know. So I actually really like that, Cooper. That's really cool. Uh,
Yeah, I mean it comes from like classic, really classic music where there's like an anthemic part of just voice. And that's like a very ancient, it's probably the most ancient, more than drums, you know? And like, you know, saying one's better than the other is, you know, not as powerful as when they are both met in the same with the same opportunity. It just hits so much harder, especially songs with like really meaningful lyrics. Where the song's great, but you hear the lyrics and you're like, oh boy, like it can be. There's a few songs out there. There's some tear jerkers, and really make you feel something important. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I was gonna kind of say that when it comes to lyrics, like to make a point very
yeah,
clear. I think that in our genres specifically, there's certain words that you don't say with certain sounds. For example, like if you're singing about if you're singing about someone you really care about and you want to say like you love them, it's kind of weird to growl that, right? Like it'd be awkward. So, to kind of combat that awkwardness, like depending on the type of vocal that you have, it does actually, I think, kind of influence the things that you do say or that you might want to say or that you would expect someone to say. I wouldn't expect someone to come up and say to me that they love me and growl it to me. I'd be a little, I would think it would be weird. But so the same thing happens in these songs, right? There are certain parts that are very majestic, like vocal lines, like when in those majestic vocal moments, I have tried to make the lyrics kind of fit with that. And in the parts that are very just brutal and heavy, the lyrics kind of go with that too.
mm-hmm.
So I think that things kind of match depending on what the actual dynamic and the feel is. So I wouldn't expect Corpse Grinder to ever also be declaring his love in any of his work that I've heard, right? Like in any of those intense moments. But so probably the lyrics don't have something to do with that. They probably have something to do with something brutal sounding, right? So I think that all those things kind of match up. But does it matter? I don't know how to answer that one. I think that um I think that language, I'll say it this way. I think that language to begin with is an inferior avenue that allows for us to communicate. So if we have a certain emotion or a certain feeling and we want to express it to someone through language, we might say it. We might say, even for example, in Spanish, right? There's multiple ways to say that you love someone. So you might use the word encanta to describe like a familial love or a friendly love for someone. But if you have a romantic love, then it's amor, right? Like so. because of that, like it's a little bit more specific. But in English, we don't even have that. It's just we have one word for that. It's just love. So if we wanted to say something in one language, but it might not even be clear anyways in another one. So I don't think that music, or I shouldn't say that, I don't think that lyrics can even get across the true emotion that any singer would want to express that could go along with the music. So, because of that, the words are already kind of not good enough. So, the sounds, I think, are the most important. I think you hear it, I think you
Yeah.
feel it. I think the words are secondary to the feeling and the emotion that the singer is putting through and putting, across to the listener.
Yeah.
But I agree that if you can match that with great lyrics, that's even better. So that's what I try and do for sure. I will give you one teaser. There is actually a point where I growl the word love in this album.
Oh.
So it's like, but so yes, we break the rules all the time, but there are some typical things that we expect, so there's definitely some rule breaking in general, that goes along with metal though, right? It's kind of like the rebellious, like, genre of music to begin with, in a sense, the non-mainstream stuff. And so, yeah, that's we're all about breaking rules here too.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, you also mentioned duality. I mean, that's like, we're always sort of ruled by these pillars of, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And yeah, there's without them, it's like becomes a binary code. It's how you order them in a certain way. And luckily with music, like it's a free for all, and we can use that, But yeah, fun stuff. Well, it's definitely this album is first and foremost. That's the captain of the ship right now, and we're in a good spot where we just have some recording with a few other instruments, and getting that as close to mixing and mastering as we can. Um, you know, probably before festival season, 2025. Um, and and then obviously, being willing to take shows in between, um, you know, just based on where it is in our time frame, if we can make something like that happen, because it really helps to have live shows to sort of hone this sound. And you learn so much on the stage too, about how you want to do things. So yeah, that's first and foremost. Um, and really gonna hit. I mean, 2025 alone is in our sights. So we're looking to make a big splash, and it'd be nice if we could release it by next year. But we'll wait and see. We kind of want to take it step at a time, and music first.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit too. I think that um, right now it's just a matter of uh, getting everything else recorded. The drums for the entire album are already recorded. That's done. So when this allows for, it's time now for the guitars to get done. So they're working on those as we speak, actually. So yeah, we're in the process of getting all of that stuff done. Really, it's not going to be the recording process that slows anything down for releasing music and new music for fans. There was a fan who just mentioned on Facebook, on the band's Facebook page, um, yesterday, and said, "Hey, like, can you upload more of your music? I want to, I want to hear more." And we're like, "Well, I told him, yes, of course, we would love to do that. Right now, though, this is the stage that we're at, is we record all of this stuff, and then if a record label wants to work with us and wants to make, things go big with us, then we're gonna do that. But that's the direction no matter what. All of us are in this band because we all want to do this full time, professionally,
Mhm.
and we want to be touring constantly and performing awesome music with awesome fans all over the world. And that's the direction. That's where we're headed. And honestly, like for those fans that are like concerned about, well, what if, a label that, if a good label, contract doesn't come our way, don't worry about that because no matter what, this music is going to come out, and either we're going to do it with a label or we're going to do it on our own. And we're going to make it awesome. And we are still going to play in all of these awesome places like Santiago, like Mexico City, Los Angeles, New York, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, like all over. We're not gonna Bogota, like we're not gonna, skimp on this. This is something that I'm putting 100% of my effort into. And I think that can be said for every single person in this band, which is something I really like. Cooper and I, yeah, we have like, and, Sakura as well, and, Wena and Trent, every single one of us has other things that we could do with our time. We have other like musical things that we could do, but this is where the priority is at. This is what we want to launch and what we want to tour the world with. So that's our focus. That's where we're at. So if you're asking what can fans expect from us soon, you can expect an amazing album and you can expect a show like somewhere around you. If you are actively following our social media, if you're supporting the band, if you're buying an album or buying a t-shirt or whatever, like a patch, we'll have a lot of different kinds of cool merchandise actually. And we'll talk more about that leading up to this show. Any fans that are jumping in there, commenting on our posts, the more like we can see like, oh, this area would be really good. Like these fans really want to see us. We're gonna go there. So that's it. That's uh that's what you can expect. Yeah, and we'll have some unique things, I think, for everybody. So, and actually we're gonna give out some things too. There'll be some freebie stuff for fans because I understand that like, we're the first band playing. So somebody that comes early that makes the effort to come see us is gonna get something in return. Besides just an amazing show, of course.
Yeah. Well, and one of the most dangerous things about a band is when they're hungry. So yeah, we're looking to earn our stripes, and 2025 is the year to make that big splash, man. We're fucking stoked.
Yes, this I all the songs I'm gonna be playing with my 6 string custom dingwall because I really like that bass. It's my custom bass, and I have so many different like settings that just brings out more of the lows and the highs, and like and it also gives me more room to play around with as far as the notes.
Dedication is something that if I had to describe what my previous experiences have been like performing in Mexico, if I had to talk about what the fans were like, I would use that word. I would say they are dedicated. And when they come to the show, they have their own thing that they plan on doing. It's like work for them too. I remember I was in Guadalajara talking with someone, and of course the crowd was wild, as it in Mexico City, Monterrey, like everywhere that I've sang there. They were wild, and it was great. And I remember someone telling me that for them, it was like a performance for them too. Like, we are bringing all this energy and we're doing something special. And they felt like they had to give something special back. And that was their almost like their job was to be an awesome crowd. So I have loved every experience I have had in the music scene in Mexico. So I am thrilled to go back to Mexico City. Like I said, I don't know. Has anybody else been to Mexico City in the band?
Nope.
These guys just don't even know what they're in for. It's going to be so lit though, and so awesome. I just can't wait for that again. I'm so thrilled. So thank you to all of the fans as well that are watching this. Definitely watch more of the interviews here because they're really great, and I've personally really enjoyed it. So, and I'll see you all at the show. I am looking forward to it so much.